We never expect life to turn upside down. But that night, as the water flooded our home, I had no idea what was truly beginning. We went to live with my father-in-law just for a while, just until things got better. But what I found there, it wasn't shelter. It was desire, silence, and a line that should never have been crossed. This is the story of how, in my husband's father's house, I lost everything, including myself. If you enjoy stories that stir your emotions, then subscribe to our channel, leave a like, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. This is a true story, and the names have been changed to protect identities. So, let's dive in. I never thought losing everything would make me feel lighter. It's strange to say that, almost insane, but in the midst of the mud that buried my past, something inside me broke free. It was the middle of the night when the water invaded our home. I woke up to the muffled sound of wood creaking, furniture floating, and Eduardo's scream pulling me by the hand, as if the world was collapsing. And in a way, it was. I saw our picture frames floating in the hallway, like tiny islands of shipwrecked memories. The TV, our wedding gift, sinking in silence. The dress I was going to wear for our 5th anniversary, swept away by a filthy, relentless current. "Go, honey, go!" he shouted, but his voice felt distant, like I was drowning in a dream. After that, I only remember the sound of sirens, the makeshift shelter, the smell of mildew clinging to my skin, and Eduardo's look, empty. He didn't hug me, not in that moment, not in the days that followed. We went to his father's house a week later. The shelter wasn't sustainable anymore, and with the little we managed to save, stuffed into borrowed suitcases, we hit the road in silence. "He's quiet," Eduardo said as he drove. "You know how he is." I knew, but I didn't know enough. Or maybe I did, but I'd never felt it. The house was in a sleepy little town, surrounded by mountains that seemed to protect, but also suffocate. It was an old building, with dark brick walls and windows that creaked in the wind. My father-in-law greeted us with a brief wave and a "come in." No smiles, no questions, as if we were temporary, unwanted guests. His name is Cesar. Gray hair, stubbled beard, and a gaze that seemed to read what you didn't say. And me, in that moment, I wasn't saying anything, because inside, I was nothing but ruins. Eduardo started leaving every day early. "I need to take care of some things," he'd say. Maybe looking for a job, maybe just running away. I spent hours in silence, sitting on the living room couch, with a cup of tea that went cold before it touched my lips. Cesar read, always the same book. Or maybe he was just pretending. "You didn't eat anything today," he said one night, not taking his eyes off the fireplace. "I'm not hungry." "Then you're feeling something else." I froze. I looked at him like it was the first time. The way his eyes pierced through me gave me the strange sensation of being naked. Not in body, in soul. He didn't say anything else. Neither did I. But that night, for the first time in days, I dreamed. And I woke up sweaty, confused, guilty. The next morning, I went to the living room bookshelf. There were dozens of books there, most with worn covers and titles that never interested me before. But there was one in particular, the one Cesar always held in his hands, like an invisible shield. It's called The Stranger by Camus, a man who lives detached from emotions, who acts on impulse, who feels no remorse. I read the first few pages and closed the book. It gave me chills, not out of fear, but out of recognition. Cesar appeared behind me silently. His voice reached me like a whisper on the back of my neck. He kills a man in the middle of the book, but that's not what condemns him. It's his lack of feelings. I turned slowly. "How many times have you read that book?" Enough to understand that there's a kind of silence that screams louder than any words. The silence that followed was long, and uncomfortable, and thrilling. The days dragged on. Eduardo came home late, smelling of cigarettes, with tired eyes and short patience. "You don't do anything all day?" he asked one night. I didn't answer. Not out of pride, but because he was no longer a part of me. The house started to feel like a stage. Me, playing the role of the silent wife. Him, the absent son. And Cesar, the only spectator. Or maybe the director. At night, the sound of Cesar's footsteps echoed in the hallway. I stayed awake, waiting. Not out of fear, but for something I still couldn't name. It was raining that night. Rain always made me more sensitive. Like everything I'd kept buried was seeping out from within. Cesar was in the kitchen, washing dishes. Eduardo hadn't come home. The clock read 11:14 p.m. "Want some tea?" he asked. I nodded. We sat on the porch, the sound of water dripping in the gutters creating an almost hypnotic rhythm. "Do you miss anything?" he asked. "I miss myself," I answered without thinking. He looked at me, long, slow, and said, "Sometimes we lose ourselves in other people. And when they leave, we realize we were alone all along." I swallowed hard. His words cut through me like blades. He understood me. And that was dangerous. Far more dangerous than anything I could have imagined. It was a Tuesday. We were fixing a kitchen drawer that had been jamming for days. Our fingers brushed by accident. Or maybe not. It was quick, but intense. My body reacted as if it had been pulled into another reality. More alive. More raw. Our eyes met. There was something there. Not overt desire. Not yet. But a silent permission. Cesar took a step back. "Better leave this for later." And he left. But later came sooner than I expected. Eduardo started sleeping elsewhere. At first he'd let me know. Then he didn't bother. "I'm taking care of some things. It's better for both of us." For both of us. I repeated it in my mind, like a hollow echo. Cesar watched everything but said nothing. He was that kind of man. Spoke little, heard everything. Maybe too much. That night, we ate dinner alone. The kitchen light was yellowish, almost theatrical, and our glances crossed between lukewarm bites and sips of water. "Is he coming back?" I asked suddenly. Cesar wiped his mouth with a cloth napkin, looked at his plate, and answered calmly, "Not the way you expect." It was late afternoon when I walked into the living room and saw Cesar with his shirt open, fixing the ceiling fan. He was sweating. His hair stuck to his forehead. His bare chest, marked by time, by the sun, by stories I didn't know. I stood there, frozen in the doorway, watching in silence, feeling the weight of the air. It wasn't just heat. It was something else. Denser. More dangerous. He climbed down the ladder and looked at me. "Everything okay?" "It's hot," I mumbled. He approached slowly. So slowly that my heart started racing. Sometimes the heat comes from inside, you know. I took a deep breath and stepped back. But inside me, something was moving forward. On the porch that night, he brought 2 glasses of wine. "I don't like wine," I said, more out of nervousness than truth. "It's just an excuse," he replied, sitting beside me. The silence between us was so full of meaning it hurt. "Do you know what's the hardest part about being alone?" he said. "What?" "It's realizing you only miss the people who never truly saw you." I stayed silent, but my throat burned. "Do you feel seen?" he asked. My voice came out low, almost a whisper. "Now I do." He placed his hand on mine. It wasn't a bold move. It was almost fatherly. But the effect on me was devastating. I closed my eyes and let it be. The touch became a habit. Small gestures. The brush of fingers when passing the coffee. A knee lightly touching on the couch. A lingering hug at the end of a conversation. Nothing was explicit, but everything was charged. One night when the power went out, we sat by candlelight. The whole house felt trapped in an ancient time. "Do you know what's worse than the dark?" he asked. "What?" "The clarity that comes with it." He moved closer, slowly, his face too close to mine, his breath mingling with mine. "If I kiss you now," he began. "There's no going back," I finished. And then he kissed me. It was a long kiss. Deep, silent. There was no soundtrack, no excuses, just a raw, suppressed truth. When we pulled apart, we didn't say anything. But we knew something had been broken, and it couldn't be fixed. I woke up earlier. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My eyes were more alive, my skin warmer, but the weight in the pit of my stomach was real. Guilt, desire, maybe both, or neither. Cesar avoided me all day. But that night, we met in the kitchen. He didn't even try to hide it. "That shouldn't have happened," he said. I nodded, but my mind screamed, "I want it to happen again." He looked at me deeply, as if searching for my soul in the depths of my eyes. "You have no idea what you're awakening in me." My breath faltered, and I knew this was the beginning of the end, or the start of something that still had no name. I started avoiding the mirror, not because I didn't like what I saw, but because I saw too much. I saw the woman I was before, the one who believed in simple promises, and I saw the one I was becoming. Silent, dangerous, hunger disguised as silence. Eduardo started coming by only to pick up clothes. He slept elsewhere. He didn't ask anything anymore, not even if I was okay. And that freed me and destroyed me. Cesar kept to his routine, but the way he looked at me said everything. He wanted. I wanted, but we pretended. What stopped us? Morals? Fear? Or the pleasure of delaying the inevitable? It wasn't planned. It never is. It was cold, raining. The lights flickered in the hallway. I walked to the living room, barefoot, wrapped in a blanket. Cesar was in the armchair, eyes closed, as if fighting his own body. When he saw me, he took a moment to react. But he didn't say anything. I sat on the floor beside him. No words. Just the creaking of old wood and the heavy breathing in the air. I rested my head on his leg. I felt his hand brush my hair. "This is wrong," he murmured. "But it feels right," I replied, almost breathless. And then he pulled me up, sat me on his lap, like someone offering comfort, or someone desiring without mercy. We kissed, long, raw, desperate. There was no sex, not yet, but there was everything. Surrender, raw desire, no excuses. The next morning, Eduardo showed up. "We need to talk," he said curtly. We went to the bedroom. He stood. I sat. "Is there someone else?" The question hit like a slap. "No," I answered, but my voice wavered, and he noticed. "There is." He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He didn't slam doors. He just grabbed his suitcases and left. Without looking back. Cesar didn't show up all day. When he came back, I was already in bed, facing away from the door. But I heard him stop there, breathe, almost come in, and then retreat. The days that followed were a suspended state, like the house had trapped the air in its lungs. Cesar and I moved through the rooms like shadows, avoiding each other, but always in the same orbit. It was like being in love with an abyss. You know, falling will kill you, but it's the flight before the fall that's addictive. Until Saturday came, and with it, the storm. Literal and emotional. The power went out. The wind howled. The windows rattled like divine warnings. Cesar came into my room, soaked from the rain. "I can't keep pretending," he said. Neither could I. This time there was no hesitation, no words. There was skin. There was desire pent up for weeks. There was surrender. We made love with anger, with hunger, with urgency. Every touch was an apology to the universe, and a scream against every rule. Afterward, we lay in silence, naked, relieved, condemned. Morning brought the weight of light, of reality, of awareness. Cesar wasn't in bed. I went downstairs, my body sore and my mind in chaos. He was in the kitchen, making coffee. "I need to leave," he said. "Will you come back?" "I don't know." He left. No kiss. No promise. But he left the coffee ready. I sat at the table, alone. The smell of coffee was strong, but not as strong as what he left in me. Days went by with no news, no messages, no footsteps in the hallway. I started to doubt myself, him, what happened. But at night, I dreamed of his hand, his breath, his weight. It was more than physical. It was a strange kind of belonging, like my pain was talking to his pain. One night, I went out and walked to the field behind the house. It was dark, cold, silent. I closed my eyes and felt the world spin. When I opened them, he was there, standing, looking at me. I tried to run, he said. I know, but I can't. Neither can I. He came closer, hugged me. And in that moment, we weren't father-in-law and daughter-in-law. We were two pieces of something the world had broken, and we only fit in each other's pain. Cesar came back to the house. No suitcases, no words. He just came back. We passed each other in the hallway like two ghosts who had already touched too much to pretend they didn't know each other. We didn't talk about that night in the field, but it was there between us, like a third body. Our coexistence became dangerously intimate, complicit, routine. He made me coffee without asking. I folded his shirts without thinking. We shared long silences, loaded glances. Was it love? No. It was something rawer, more urgent, sadder, maybe. I started getting messages from my sister. You've disappeared. What's going on? I heard Eduardo left. I didn't reply. I couldn't. The world out there felt like a past life. I started writing in a notebook, scattered thoughts. My skin has memory. Some touches don't wash away. Some guilt doesn't scream. It whispers all the time. Cesar found the notebook one day, read it without asking, looked at me, and said only, "You write beautifully, even when you're bleeding inside." We sat there, on the kitchen floor, like two survivors who knew they wouldn't make it out alive. It was a Tuesday when he told me, "I need to go." I knew, from the moment I saw him at my bedroom door. "Will you come back?" "Not this time." I stood still. "We hurt each other, you know that, right?" "I know," I replied. He touched my face, like an apology without words, like loving in the most wrong and truest way possible. We kissed one last time. No rush, no promises, no illusions. And then he left, as if he'd never been there, but leaving everything in me in disarray. The house felt enormous, too empty, and me, small. I got the official divorce papers from Eduardo in the mail. I signed without thinking. I put the notebook in a box. With it, the shirt Cesar forgot. Sometimes I still smell him, or dream of the sound of his footsteps in the hallway. But I wake up alone, and I know it was real, and I also know it was wrong. But some things don't ask for permission to happen. They just arrive, take everything, and then leave, leaving you with the scraps. Today, months later, I live somewhere else. Simpler, emptier, more mine. I don't talk about what happened, not out of shame, but because no one would understand. Some stories only make sense to those who lived them. And even then, sometimes not even to us. I don't know if Cesar thinks of me, if he misses me, if he regrets it. But I know that house, that time, that abyss. They're etched in me, like a scar that stings when it rains. I'm not the same. I never will be again. And it all started with that visit to my husband's father's house, where I expected nothing, but found everything I didn't know I was missing.